The bean they're done, that goat Fiasco, and the ice cream showdown. So, let me tell you about the craziest thing that happened in my small rural town. We've got this awesome little ice cream shop called Scoops of Serenity that's owned by this guy named Jim. Right next door, there's this cute farm-to-table restaurant called Granny's Goodies, run by the sweetest old lady, Betty. These two have been neighbors for years. And even though their businesses are complete opposites, they've always managed to get along just fine. But then, one ridiculously hot summer, this heat wave hit our town, and it was like everything went haywire. Jim's ice cream shop was getting slammed with customers, and the line was out the door. It was pretty clear that people were getting desperate for some relief from the heat. Now, Betty started noticing that her customers were dwindling, and she couldn't help but feel a little envious of Jim's booming business. So, she came up with a plan to bring people back to her restaurant. She decided to throw a goat and bean festival, complete with a petting zoo and a delicious bean-centric menu. It was a pretty out there idea, but she figured it would at least get people's attention. The day of the festival rolls around, and Betty's got everything set up. The goats are bleating, the beans are cooking, and a few people are trickling into her restaurant. But then, Betty notices something. Jim has put up a sign in his window that says, "Free ice cream with purchase from Granny's Goodies." And boy, did that ever rile her up. Betty storms over to Jim's shop, fuming, and demands that he take the sign down. But Jim just smirks and says, "Betty, it's just good business. You should be thanking me." Betty, not one to back down, decides to take matters into her own hands. She goes to her restaurant and tells her staff to start giving away free bowls of beans to anyone who comes in with an ice cream from Jim's shop. Her reasoning? If Jim can use her festival to boost his business, she can do the same with his ice cream. It's the perfect example of malicious compliance, right? Now here's where it gets wild. Word spreads fast in a small town, and before you know it, people are pouring into Betty's restaurant with their ice cream cones, ready for their free beans. But nobody really thought about how odd a combination ice cream and beans would be. And as people started digging in, the looks on their faces ranged from confused to downright disgusted. As people began to leave Granny's Goodies, they started letting the goats from the petting zoo nibble on their leftover beans and ice cream. The goats, being goats, went absolutely nuts for this bizarre concoction, and soon enough, we had a whole herd of sugar and bean-fueled goats running wild in the shopping center. In the end, both Jim and Betty had to work together to wrangle the goats and clean up the chaos that ensued. And while their businesses didn't exactly benefit from the great goat, bean, and ice cream incident, they both learned a valuable lesson in cooperation and the limits of malicious compliance. And, well, our town ended up with one heck of a story to tell for years to come. Okay, why was Betty upset though? Jim was helping her out. If they wanted free ice cream, they would need to buy something from her. He's taking a loss to help her out, and she gets mad? WTF. How was giving free items with the only listed requirement a purchase from a different store going to help profit? Sure, if you get first-timers from the other store who never have had your product, they may buy future products. But typically you expect someone to pay you for one item and get a lesser at discount or free. This just encourages people to buy at whichever store costs less, and force the other store to lose 100% of sales. Technically, you might be able to bring the receipts for your free items to the other store and turn one purchase into infinitely many freebies depending on how the conditions are written. Granny really should have just enjoyed the free customers, since if they wanted ice cream, they were still incentivized to buy beans to get both. Okay, kids, First we will pet the goats. Then we'll get an ice cream cone. Quote, I'm trying to wrap my head around licking an ice cream cone held by a goat-smelling hand. C. Fun. Ridiculous story. But you missed the writing prompt that asked for malicious compliance. Not just malicious behavior, even if delicious. Cool beans. Oh wait. This really seems like it was written by ChatGPT. The structure, with the lesson at the end, and the overall ridiculousness of it are giveaways. Hey op, what do you have against Tom Scott? There is a story of 3 furniture store connected into one large building. The first store posted with a large sign, 10% off of selected items. Quote. The second store posted, 10% of all items. Quote. The third store put up a sign saying, main entrance. The term is called guerrilla marketing. I read it 3 times and still think this is a cartoon episode I've watched somewhere. Great album title. Just woke up. First post I see is this. Won't be reading it just yet cause I'll probably immediately go back to sleep now. But just had to say great job on the title. Soon enough, we had a whole herd of sugar and bean-fueled goats running wild in the shopping center. This is the best story ever. A million updates for your header and tail. Outstanding story. That was charming. Thank you for sharing this. You're good at telling stories. Smiley face. I'm waiting for the punchline. Like one clever sentence in a Scottish accent containing the words goat, beans, and ice cream. There is absolutely no compliance. Malicious or otherwise. Story sounds like it was made up by a 5YO.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.